All right, Lee, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so thrilled and honored to have you on the Lippert Academy for Leadership podcast.
Thank you. It's a good subject, and I love talking about it.
Yeah, so just for our listeners, just to sort of orient them on how we actually intersected with you, myself, Edgar Cabello, and Lee are all authors on a book called The Wow Factor, which is word of the week, and it's 52 words from thought leaders around the world in all different spaces to share with the business community to just sort of guide and direct and focus us week by week on things that really matter in leadership. So maybe we'll just go around the horn and briefly share each of our words and maybe a key takeaway of the word that is in the book. Edgar, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to do a couple of chapters, so I'll only give you one of them, but the one was called control. And I start the chapter by saying that that word control kind of has a bad rap. So with the idea being that there's a lot of things that we can't control, and there's a lot of things that we simply can't. And I know I've heard a couple of your podcasts, Lee, so I know you're real familiar with that in terms of the things around us and then being able to control ourselves. You know, we talk a lot about the controllables and the uncontrollables around here. So my chapter was kind of built around that big idea. So without giving the whole thing, we'll just kind of whet people's appetite for that. So how about you?
Awesome. So I did the word mindset. My background is in human performance psychology. And so, you know, what we know is that repeated thoughts actually build mindsets, and thoughts are basically mental reps for the brain that change the form and function of how our brain works. And so we have to be really mindful of what we're thinking about. You know, I work with Notre Dame football, and I had a player come up to me one day and he goes, "Doc, I've never thought so much about what I've been thinking about." And man, what a powerful lesson for all of us, right? To start thinking about what we're thinking about, because it's building mindsets that are going to impact how we show up as leaders.
Well,
Lee,
by the way, I tell people half the stuff in your brain's not even true, so quit thinking about it.
No kidding.
amen to that, right? And Lee, you had one of our favorite words in the book, which is culture.
Yeah.
So tell us more about your word, culture.
Well, I think at the end of the day, culture, I've learned really working, I worked for Hilton, Marriott, and Disney. Marriott had a very strong culture where you really felt like you were important. No matter what position you had, you were respected. Mr. Marriott paid attention to everybody. And it's kind of like at home when the culture's good, and the kids feel safe and they feel respected and they feel like they're loved, and they get in less trouble. And I think that's true for anybody. I think it's one of the biggest problems we have today is not creating a culture where everybody matters and they know they matter. You know, that's what I think about a lot is everybody matters and they know they matter. And the best way to make sure they know they matter is to tell them.
Hey,
Yeah.
this isn't rocket science,
So
right?
it's
This is just leadership.
it is. It's if you think about it, you do it better.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So Lee, I'm kind of curious. Just I know with your experience and now into your retirement, but retired but inspired phase of life, what's just on your mind these days? What are you thinking about? What rises to the top?
Yeah, the most thing I'm thinking about now is how to give people better ideas about not underestimating what they can accomplish in their life, and sitting around worrying about, well, we were poor and my mother wasn't nice and blah, blah, blah. Because I think the biggest problem a lot of people have is they underestimate what they can achieve. They underestimate the influence they have on other people. And they just kind of go along through life missing huge opportunities. And I know, because I mentor a couple of kids that came out of really tough schools, that when they get support and know somebody's there for them and you're available and you help them, they soar. And so I've converted from wanting to be a boss in my early career to being a teacher. So teachers get a lot of satisfaction. And so I tell everybody, quit being a boss. Be a teacher. If somebody's not doing something right, you don't need to yell at them. Teach them how to do it. And so it's a better approach, a better concept, and that's what I think about today. Am I teaching somebody? And by the way, it's the best satisfaction you get is when somebody calls you and said, "Thanks so much. I never thought of that." That's exactly, it turned my life around. And people ask me why I do public speaking, and I say, because people clap and I'm insecure. I need positive feedback. When I play golf, nobody claps, so I quit doing that. So You know, do the things that make you feel better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great. Would you be okay with a couple of Disney oriented questions? Is that fine?
Sure.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna
Go
start.
ahead.
I'm gonna start with a difficult one. I think a lot of people are gonna be curious who your favorite Disney character over the years has been.
Yeah, it was the first one I had a good interaction with when I joined the company. Was Tigger.
Ah,
And,
good pick.
That is a great pick. So tell
Tigger
us
and I
about your
spent some time out in 100-degree heat one day greeting guests, and yeah, he jumps around a lot, but
Yep.
and
He's bouncy.
kind of excitable, unpredictable. Yeah, I
love
like
that.
Tigger.
I love that. So here's a question that I just came up with. So what can you describe cultural orientation at Disney? And I know you've been in a number of different roles there, from the resorts to, I saw Paris is on your resume. How does cultural orientation happen? When does it start, and how does that process roll out?
Well, I'd say it starts from day one. Every person who joins Disney spends 8 hours in a class called Traditions, where we really inject into your veins pixie dust. So the time you come out of there, you're ready to kill for Disney, you know, and do the best thing. And by the time they come out of there, they understand that every position at Disney is important. It's all connected. We make sure the guy cooking the French fries understands where he's connected to the guest 30 minutes after he cooks those French fries, or 10 minutes. And the housekeepers are how important they are, because if your room's not made up, and we put all the connections together to make sure that nobody feels like they're in one of those jobs that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because they all matter. And you know, just think about the people who clean the bathrooms at Disney. Man, I mean, everybody comes into touch with that, and they know that, and they do it better. You know, when you know you got something really important, you do it better. And when you know you're part of it, it's like in hospitals. I work with a lot of hospitals, making sure the people who in the cafeteria understand their connection to the attitude of the nurses and doctors coming down on break and only have 30 minutes. And let's get them through there. Let's be nice to them so they don't go back up on the floors with a bad attitude because they're annoyed that they only got 10 minutes because you didn't have a cashier in place. And it's all connected. You know, it's really all connected, and you got to connect it for people. And most companies don't. Most people don't. There's a lot of people that are ignored in organizations. They're not that important. Nobody says hello to them. Nobody knows what they want to achieve in their life, their aspirations. We don't talk. I mean, it's amazing. And when you bring them in, so when we really get our Disney cast members out there, we're very clear with them too, a clarity of expectations for performance. We're putting on a show just like anybody is, hospital or your factories, they're putting on a show. It's attitude, knowing your role in the show, being professional, doing it the way you're trained to do it, all of those things. And I tell everybody, if you can make sure they understand they're in a show, they have a role in the show, it may be on stage, maybe backstage, they may support the show, or they may be a character in the show, including management, which management's got a role in the show, which is being supportive and being out with the cast members and the guests, solving issues, coaching people when they see a cast member not doing it right, kind of like your mother. She never goes away. You know, she tells you the same thing for 25 years, maybe 100 years, but because she cares, and that's what we try to create that. So, and I would say at the end of the day, we're so clear about where our expectations for performance. We say Disney World's the happiest place on earth, or else. So just like your mother used to say, you know, be home by 11 or else.
That's
well,
right.
my mother was a terrorist before we had them in the world, so we didn't want to find out what or else meant.
No kidding.
And people like to work in a discipline, what's expected of them, organization and culture, just like kids do. It makes you safe. It makes you feel emotionally okay, and it's safer. It's builds your self-esteem and self-confidence. It builds your belief in yourself. And so we give a good injection of that. And our leadership understands their role in the show is to be supportive, not to be out there terrorizing people and trying to satisfy their egos because they weren't treated right when they were a little boy. So we're very clear about expectations. I think that's the one thing we do best.
That's
and
great.
if you had a good mother, you know what that means. Clarity of
Absolutely.
expectations.
You know,
Absolutely.
I just love hearing you express that so eloquently, Lee, because I feel like in our society today at large, sometimes people and leaders and even parents, you know, are shy away from discipline and structure and accountability, you know, and we have to understand as a nation, but also as a world, you know, that these are good things. You know, humans are wired for these types of structure and opportunity. And so, I mean, business can be an opportunity to help reinstill that, you know?
Hey, most people train their dogs better than they do their kids. So that's
You know what? Our dog is well trained,
Yes,
so I'm hopeful that if we have kids, they're going to be be on point. Our neighbors are like, yeah, we can't wait to have humans because the dog's the best trained kid in the neighborhood.
I think people underestimate that's how big of an impact they make on being a parent. I mean, it's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything. And in business too, that role modeling, everybody's watching you. Be careful what you say and do today. People are watching you, they're judging you, and you get a reputation and you deserve it one way or the other.
Amen to that. Lee, you said something, you know, just hearing you talk, you know, you've got, your orientation is called traditions. They leave with pixie dust in their veins. You've got, you know, you've got cast members and guests. You know, one of the things that's been critical on our leadership and cultural journey here at Lippert Components has just been the power of language and the importance of words. Can you talk to us a little bit about your perspective on that and maybe why you think that's so critical?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all human. And when I say you are one of my subordinates,
Right.
do you love that? Or my people, sounds like you're building the pyramids. I mean, or those people, or, you know, that don't have a name. I mean, language is important. You know, I can tell my wife I love her, or I can tell her I like her. It makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
And language, you know, the tone of your voice when you deal with a difficult issue is your goal is not to intimidate and to make the people not be able to sleep tonight. Your goal is to turn around the behavior or to change the performance. And if you think I care about you, that'll work much better than if you think I'm just crazy. And it's we can learn a lot from mothers and grandmothers, and they have empathy and they have discipline, and those are the two things you need as a leader: empathy and discipline. I mean, if you have empathy but no discipline, people think, well, he's a nice guy, but he doesn't get anything done. If you have discipline, no empathy, they think you're a jerk.
Yeah,
So,
no kidding.
and empathy not meaning you should feel sorry for people. It means that you might want to make sure they understand you. Where, you know, the single mom's different than the 40-year-old employee, and the 18-year-old is different than the person who's been there 20 years. And try to understand where somebody just coming from another country is. You can't just, you know, I have 3 grandkids, and they're all different. And the way you talk to them, the way you discipline them, the way you, you know, our granddaughter, she takes things very hard. She's a young lady, and the boys can either look like they're blowing it off or listen. I mean, you got to really see what's going on there and pay attention. And most people don't do that either. They just try to manage everybody the same.
Yeah.
When you talked about control, you know, management is control. That you're trying to keep things under control, like attitudes and training and cleanliness and friendliness. Those are control issues that are important. And you do that by, I think, I always tell people the yeast in a business is leadership.
Very
The
good.
yeast is leadership.
Like that.
And leave the yeast out, it's pretty flat when it comes out, and you probably can't get much money for it. So
it's interesting to me, Lee, that it, you know, I mean, it sounds like a lot of your focus has been on structure and discipline. And it's interesting to me in the world of creating magic, that those two things can live together. And in manufacturing, you know, it's very metrics driven, and I'm sure your world is also. But for us, you know, we have to make things, we have to make them right. The quality has to be done. So it makes a lot more sense in terms of discipline. But when I hear about creating magic, structure, and discipline, Can you talk about how those two things come together?
Well, try raising your kids without discipline. You'll find out pretty quick that you're going to be spending a lot of time in the future getting lawyers and getting them in rehab and getting them out, getting them expelled from school, and God knows, DUIs, and flunking out of college, and discipline. I mean, it's a matter of learning that you got to do the hard things.
There you
And
go.
parents that are good teach kids that, and they make sure the kids are doing the hard things when they're growing up. Self-control, the way you speak to people. How many times do we tell kids when they're little and grandma comes or somebody comes to the house, and now say hello, shake their hand, say excuse me when you leave the table, say I'm sorry, say thank you, and mother's going like, it's not working very well. And then one day people say, you got great children.
Yeah.
And you go, you don't know what I went through. And at work you do too. When people say you got the best employees, I say, boy, you don't know what I go through, because people need a lot of reinforcement. They need a lot of retraining. They need a lot of reminding. They need a lot of encouragement, appreciation, those kinds of things. I tell them appreciation, recognition, encouragement's the fuel that drives human performance. I mean, really, think about it. That drives human performance more than anything.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you feel wanted and you matter and somebody cares about you, you're not going to leave that easily.
Yeah.
Or if you come into a place where you've been in other places where they didn't do that, boy, that can change your life right there. And so it's powerful, and it goes to the bottom line too, by the way. You get it in profits, you get it in sales, you get it in customer satisfaction, repeat business. I mean, it's just like, duh.
Yeah. Well, you know what I love too, when I'm talking to some leaders and they think about leadership and culture, like, okay, this fluffy stuff, and so they want to talk about it in that regard. But when we understand how humans are actually wired, and you keep saying the word performance, right? At the end of the day, it's about performance. And so if you really want the performance that you say you want, well, guess what? You're going to need to change some of your behaviors. And don't talk to me about performance if you're not willing to get on the journey that we know actually leads to high performance, whether that's from a scientific standpoint or from examples like Disney of companies that have done it incredibly well for a long period of time. And so I just get excited when to speak with a leader like you that gets this isn't soft and fluffy. This is a performance enhancing strategy that not only drives your business, but also builds people in a way that helps them be the best version of themselves, because the world needs that now more than ever, Well,
there's no upside to intimidating people. There's no upside to yelling at people. There's no upside. I tell people, do you think there's an upside? Try it with your wife. And
be up the side of your head.
We'll have turnover in the family. You'll have
that's exactly right.
You'll need a lawyer. So I mean, it's just common sense. But the problem is a lot of people know this stuff, and a lot of people don't. They were raised in families that were insecure, and they didn't get, they didn't have good role models and all of that. But it's why it's so critical that we get a head start on. I say, I tell teachers, if the parents don't do a good job because of all the problems people have in their private lives, the teachers are the first firewall. You have a chance to spot that kid, and then unfortunately the organization they go to work for becomes the third firewall, which it's even harder, and you have to work harder. And so there's a lot of chances to either improve people or turn them around or make sure it doesn't happen in the first place. And I have 3 grandkids and I have a son. They're all successful. There's no problem. And I grew up in Oklahoma on a farm, no indoor plumbing. My grandkids don't even believe that. My mother was married 5 times. I was adopted twice. I got my name Cockerell when I was 16 by husband number 4. Wow. He had money because my mother started making better choices. He was a doctor. And I got to go to college, but I didn't have an early good start. And I was not a good student, and I flunked out because I didn't go to class. I had a great time for 2 years having fun, and the doctor gave me a brand new convertible when he married my mother, so that was even a bigger hard problem. for class. It wasn't a hard problem getting dates. But, so I flunked out. I went in the Army, and that's where I really learned about discipline and doing what you say you're going to do. The Army's not really into you showing up late, not doing what you're supposed to do. And then I started to work for Hilton as a waiter. In the Washington Hilton, I got a waiter's job up where John Hinckley shot President Reagan coming out of the hotel one day in the 80s. And my early work ethic, I always had a job. When you grow up on a farm, you always work. They don't call it work. It's just, that's the way it is. You got to do it.
Life.
And so I was the best little waiter they ever had. Next thing I knew, I got the management training program. And then I was the best little management trainee because I always said, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Anything you want. I'll be there. And I was early and on time and had a good attitude. And next thing I knew, I was just kept going. And so college would have been nice, and I still have nightmares about not having a degree, but it all worked out okay.
Yeah. I was listening to a recent podcast of yours, and I think it was the idea of controlling your mood and positivity. I know that's a big thing to you. You've already kind of started down that road. So maybe give us a little bit more color in terms of why that's so important to you. And so just I'd love to hear your take on positivity.
Well, I went through both times. When I was first getting into business, I was very insecure. I was this young, insecure kid from Oklahoma, never been anywhere, never been out of the state, didn't have a college degree, didn't know anything. I mean, when I was in the Army, they were talking about Vietnam. I didn't even know what they were talking about. I'd never heard of that name ever in my life. I mean, I knew nothing. And I'd never read the paper. I'd never watched. I mean, it's unbelievable. I watched Gunsmoke and Howdy Doody or something. But so I came out pretty insecure, and I was a tough manager. I could get things done, and I could hold people accountable, but I didn't have much of that empathy, and I kind of intimidated people and used my authority to maybe not right, and abused it, and went through a period of time for maybe 15 years where I was getting things done, but my nickname, turned out they told me, was Doberman. And so that's probably not, now today I'm a Cocker Spaniel.
Makes sense.
I can bite, but I don't. And I had a run-in with one of my managers who was totally intimidated by me coming to visit his property, and actually had to go to the hospital to be checked out. He was so upset and not feeling well. And he came back and we had dinner, and he told me that, and it was really embarrassing to me. And I know my mother and grandmother would kill me if they knew I was behaving that way. And it was pure insecurity. I didn't want to get too close to people. I didn't want and I don't like I didn't personally like confrontation. Yeah. So I was so tough that there was no confrontation. Right. People did what I said. And then that struck me, and I started working on that. Went to seminars, started reading more about it, and the more success I had, the more confidence I got, and eventually I let go. And it was affecting my marriage too. I tried to control my wife for 25 years. She wouldn't go for it, so I quit complaining about her, and she got better immediately. So I mean, it's amazing. It was me, it wasn't her. And I wanted to control. I want to control everything. I don't trust anybody. Everybody's let me down. I don't think that's going to work. And that's hard to work out of. But I became aware that long term, this was not going to be the road to success. And I was very defensive. I took things personally, and I couldn't take feedback. And one boss stopped me one day and said, "Lee, do you realize the whole world doesn't revolve around Lee Cockerell? We're just talking about a business problem here. Don't go into battle stations and defend yourself." And he really helped me a lot and worked me out of it. And when you have those people because he liked me and he cared about me, and he just told me the truth. And I think a lot of people don't get the truth. My wife actually is very good at telling me the truth. She's still working on me she's trying to teach me how to apologize more sincerely. And it's not going that well, but I'm trying harder. We're getting there. My grandkids still rate me a 10, so I got some support.
I hear you.
And so anyway, that's what happened.
That's great.
That's what happens to people. A lot of these leaders in the world today, they say they're successful because they're making millions of dollars, but they're not happy. And they're, so I mean, what's somebody going to do with 800 million, 700? I mean, what? And you're 70 years old by now, and you're on your third marriage, and your kids doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes me happy is being healthy and having my family together. That's all. I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Certainly I've been lucky. I've had a good career. I made enough money to live, but I don't need to, you know, I can do what I want today. And I can help people, and I don't, you know, and I just wonder, I tell people, don't become famous. It's dangerous. You know, look at all the famous people. They commit suicide, get on drugs, get 12 divorces. I mean, they can't go out. There's everybody chasing them around. You know, give me a break.
Yeah.
I go to Starbucks. Nobody tries to take my picture. You know?
So Lee, there were two things in there that I'd love to just highlight, and the other to get just your thoughts on. I think, to me, you know, the first step is always self-awareness. We really have to be aware before we can enhance anything. And so I heard that throughout, you know, your story as well, of just the awareness levels. But then you got to be courageous enough to do something about it, right? And so all of our listeners out there, you know, again, I just think that self-awareness is critical. And so, you know, start to raise that, because that's really how we can get on that journey of growth and our next layer of potential, you know, if you will.
Well, unless you have somebody who's willing to tell you the truth, you may not get that self-awareness. I tell people the only two reasons I believe people change is either a crisis in their life or education. I learn, I accept it. I had a good role model. I worked for somebody who took care of me, or I have a crisis, a divorce, an illness, a child running away from. I mean, think about it. Every decision we make in the world is usually either we learn something. I tell people, when you learn more, you can become more, and that's why. And if you have a crisis, you know, it's like buying a treadmill after your bypass surgery.
That's right.
Or buying a fire extinguisher after the house burns down. Or a pool fence after one of your children drown. Or no, you gotta be educated and think about, do the things in advance so certain things don't happen. And being aware of your weaknesses. I mean, I still know I have it's in me to be defensive and to not like criticism. And I've learned to control that, because my wife can say something to me and I could go off. Not because of what she said, because she was right. It's just something that just triggers it. You know, we talk about those triggers in life. They're there. And so I now I say, let it go. I sing that song from Frozen. Let it go, let it go. My wife says, why are you always whistling that song? I said, well, you don't need to know.
You don't need to know. I'm trying to let it go, man.
It's just a sweet way to coach yourself.
The more you let it go, the easier it becomes.
Absolutely.
I know it's going to come, and I know when it comes, I expect it, and I'm just going to.
You know,
before I overreacted. I just go like, it comes shooting out.
Well, that's, you know, too, people I think are afraid of hard things, of negativity. Human, like, we just have to recognize, like, listen, bad things are going to happen. Like, we can't avoid that, but we do have a choice of how are we going to react and respond to it when it comes, you know, and I love that thought too.
You know, and the thing I've
That's
learned.
why people are in therapy, you know, they're
Indeed.
Totally.
And I think, you know, I mean, therapy just means healing, right? And it's like, we're all trying to get better and trying to fix our brokenness. And so I just found it really interesting in terms of what you just said, because I think a lot of times our coaching conversations have a lot to do with just holding up a mirror. It's not necessarily giving advice. It's, you know, I oftentimes just ask people, it's just like, hey, would you mind if I share a few of my own observations with you? And then you tell me if that makes any sense, you know? And it's just a real on the level conversation with people. It's not punitive. It's not pointing your finger, but it opens up a conversation. And oftentimes what comes out the back end is self-awareness. So I just love what you said, because it is difficult to have those conversations, but boy, is it worth it. And it certainly pays dividends.
And you can ask them, have they ever heard this before? They have.
Yeah.
They've heard it before. You're not the first one.
Right.
I want to dig a little bit more into something Edgar brought up a little bit ago, because I see this a lot in leaders and people in general. The ability to shift like moods, right? Or like your energy and your positivity and perspective. I mean, over the course of a day, we go through so many situations and scenarios, and not all of them are going to be good, right? So I see a lot of our leaders, they'll walk into a meeting in a great mood, and depending on who the customer was that they went in with or what the topic of conversation is, they come out a different human, often grumpy or distracted, or, but then they need to go in front of, let's say, a new young team member, right, that is just coming to the business maybe for the first time, and they bring with them whatever was a part of that last meeting. How have you found over the course of your career to shift throughout the course of the day and come into a moment in the right mood state and mindset to get the performance that you want, or the experience that you're looking for with each person?
Well, I think the first thing is understanding that that is an issue, and knowing it's going to happen. So frankly, I am always in a good mood. Not really, but I'm not going to show that. I'm the leader. I'm the parent. I'm not going to use profanity in front of my grandchildren. I'm not going to speak to my wife inappropriate. I'm not going to say something about somebody I hung up the phone and say something they can hear. I'm going awareness, the same old story. I know that I know that when you're a parent, a leader of any kind, people are paying attention, and people become like their role models. They become like the culture they live in to survive. If you hang out with a bunch of idiots, you'll become an idiot. If you hang out with good people who care about you and are empathy, and they're there to help you, you'll become that way. And I'm very, how many of us are very dubious about who our children hang out with, because they will be influenced and they will get in trouble. And we know that. And when you make sure they don't hang out with those kids, they're going to not like you. Well, that's their problem. And because you're there for the long haul. You're playing the long game. You're not playing the okay, do whatever you want game. And it's, again, responsibility. It's being aware of your influence on other people.
Yeah.
I would say that's the second thing. People underestimate their influence on other people every day. Strangers, mom, their kids when they get home, their wife, their neighbors, their, just same old story. Somebody said, put a rubber band on your wrist and pop it every time you're an idiot, and you'll get over it. And because when you overreact, it only happens for a few seconds, but the damages can be lasting, and the damage doesn't go away as quick as it happened. And that's why I'll tell you a little story. My wife was driving with the kids when they were little, and a car stopped in front of her, and she kind of said an inappropriate word, and the two little kids were in the back, our grandkids, and our grandson said, "Mammy, is that the last word you want people to remember you by?" I'll never forget. Oh my God. Is that the last word you want people to remember you by? And
I don't want your grandkids hanging out with mine.
He was 4 years old.
Wow.
That's
and I went, sometimes people say, oh, the kids are asleep. No, the kids are never asleep. Yeah. Don't even fall for that one. They probably got your room wired already. They're listening to everything. They know what's going on. Kids are very perceptive.
Wow.
And first of all, just behave yourself. And why would you do that? I mean, it's a bad habit. It's just a bad habit. And it's your own anger that creates this. There's something going on. You're the problem, not the person you deal with. Everybody has 10 problems you don't know about. Let it go. Come on. It's not about the complaint about cold food. It's 12 things you don't know what's going on in their life that causes.
Yeah, that's right.
When a guest is yelling at me at Disney, I just look at them and think, they got problems I don't know about.
It's so true. And in the podcast I listened to, I really appreciated that you actually highlighted a few of those. You said something like, they may not be feeling well, or they might be having some other issue at home, or they're just, something happened to them we don't know about.
Oh, that's usually the case. I mean,
it has to be.
Their marriage is not going well. Their house is being foreclosed on. They can't afford the tuition. They just spent too much money at Disney. It's 95 degrees. I mean, it's everything except the thing they're yelling at you about.
Yeah. Indeed.
Most of the time.
Yes.
So I have sort of a big picture question. Like, one of my deepest passions and, what I feel part of my purpose is to just help build systems that are conducive to high performance and get, teams and synergies in place that allow culture to be sustainable and people to learn and grow and become the best versions of themselves in whatever system that is, whether it's a family structure or whether it's in the sports setting or in the business setting. And so, you know, looking at your life and your career's journey, I mean, you've done that in some pretty huge places and big brands. And so I'm curious, like at a place like Disney, where you have 40,000 cast members or team members, as we refer to them as, and you're trying to infuse and disseminate that culture and create that magic for all those people, you know, how do you do that on such a broad scale that can be, you know, sustainable in nature and permeate to the very front line of every heart and mind of team members?
Yeah, I think we do three things better than most companies, and any company can do them, but they don't. And number one, we hire better. We're very careful who we bring into the organization. Actually, I would say it's the most important thing you do in an organization. There's nothing more important than who you bring in. Your people are your brand. They're the ones going to be who you are, how you're thought about. Even if you want to join Disney today, you have to go on the internet and answer 136 questions about yourself that we developed, and it's very predictive about your attitude, the discipline. Are you going to be on time to work? Can you stay out there and sell an ice cream cone at 95 degrees for 8 hours and be happy? And and it's predictive. And if you get through that, okay, great. Now you can go over and fill out an application. But before that, when I was there, you had to watch a film about Disney expectations, personal professionalism, being on work on time, no visible tattoos, no visible piercings, no shine shoes, name tag on, how you treat people, blah, blah, blah. At the end of that film, about 25% of the people decide not to work for Disney. That's what clarity of expectations does. You know, it's a powerful thing, clarity. And just remember, was your mother clear with you?
Oh, yes.
Did she have any problems being clear?
No.
Right. Why? Because she loves you.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you respect your people and you're going to be clear. I mean, you're hurting them. It's not about you. It's about them. That's your job. And it's irresponsible not to be clear. So clarity is a huge thing. And so that's one thing we do best. Second thing, we train better. We train you, we test you, and we enforce the training. Those three things. Just like your mother. She trains you and she enforces it.
She used to tell me, if you've got time to do it twice, you've got time to do it right.
Sure. And if she's still around, she'll continue to say that.
She does.
There's only a few things they say about 5,000 times before you. And then it doesn't matter how old she gets, she'll still be helping you get better.
Always.
And, so training is about, you know, Bill Marriott told me many years ago when I worked for Marriott. I started with Marriott when they only had 32 hotels. Wow. So I saw Mr. Marriott a lot, spent a lot of time with him. And he said, one day he said two things to me. He said, Lee, number one, the only way you get excellence in any organization is training and enforcement of that training. And number two, he said, if you have flies in your restaurant, you like flies.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that applies, you have rude kids, that would be you. That would not be the kids. And if you have a dirty operation or you have managers who are not conducting themselves appropriately, that's you, not them. And more people need to face up to, it's you. It's not, you know. It's so, you know, so training. And I mean, I'm talking about behavioral training, expectations for how you behave, how you treat people, and no inappropriate jokes, no making people feel uncomfortable. You will get fired if you do it. That's clarity of expectations. And we have our guests are from 130 countries. Our employees are from all over the world. Every religion, every sexual orientation, you name it. And we're going to have a culture and an environment where people wake up in the morning and want to come to work, not have to come because they know it's clean. It's kind of like the environment, you know, it's no clouds, no lightning, no thunderstorms. It's blue skies, 69 degrees, everybody's happy. And I want to go there.
Yeah.
And they come in and they do their job. Now, are they always happy? No, but on balance, they are.
Yes.
You know, I tell people on balance, I love working for Disney. Were there days when I didn't? Yes. On balance, I have a great marriage. Are there days when I don't like it? Yes. But on balance is the name of the game. And so training, you got to be very clear with people, because people they don't hear you. And don't assume people know anything. You don't know what their parents taught them. You don't know what the last job taught them. You don't know what their ethics are, their honesty. You got to go through what's important to you and your organization. I said, Disney, there's only one way to do things at Disney. It's the Disney way. It's not your way.
Yeah.
And in the Army, it's the Army way. And you better get on board. And at Marriott, it was the Marriott way. And that's why these companies have consistency. That's why they're still around after all these years. You know, every guest has a problem, and we take care of it for them.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to think about, are you training your people as well as you should and well as you could? Are you being clear enough? What are you leaving out? And then third, we create a culture that's better than other cultures. We create this culture where everybody matters and they know they matter. Our leaders we pick the right kind of leaders already because we pick the right people. Then we train the leaders, and we know. And I say, you know, the formula is hire them right, train them right, and treat them right. And you won't have any problem.
That's awesome. I am taking so many copious notes over here.
Yeah, this just turned into classroom.
Part of getting the right part of hiring the right people is firing the wrong people.
Amen.
And most leaders don't want to do that. I would say everybody knows 2 or 3 people in their company shouldn't be there, and they're not dealing with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
They know. And the employees know.
Yeah.
And
everybody knows.
Your reputation is taking a hit.
It is.
You talk a big story, but you don't really do it. And,
it's very good.
All.
Yeah, that's been an interesting part of our journey along the way too. You know, as we've grown and evolved, we've been on our cultural journey for about 8 years now as an organization at Lippert Components. And so, you know, we're still in that process, right, of really making sure that we're identifying those that are pulling us backwards, or, you know, being opposite of what we're trying to create, and dealing with those. And we're certainly not perfect, and we've got area of opportunity, but that's been something that over the last couple years has just become more and more evident. And as your culture gets stronger, those people get more and more obvious, you know, of who it is.
A lot of them will leave on their own, and a lot of them some people will never leave until you. So it's when you think about it, having the right people, well trained, and know what they're doing, and they're happy to come in. I mean, that's a pretty good formula. And it's not, you don't have to get don't get bored with the basics. I tell people, this is basics.
Yeah.
Honesty, integrity are the basics. These are the things you teach your kids that'll make them successful, not where they graduated from. That's the least of your problems.
That's right. That's right.
I tell everybody 3 things you got to make sure everybody understands. You got to have education. That can be in college, or it can be self-educated with the internet and podcasts and reading and caring. And so you got education, you got experience, which is the big winner. And you got exposure, being exposed to people from everywhere. When I left Oklahoma, I didn't know anything. I'd never been out of the state. I thought I'd never met a black person until I was 20 years old. I went to segregated schools.
Sure.
And today I do work in 45 countries, you know, and I love everybody. They all have babies. They love them. They have, you know, forget the government. The government is not the people. And well, I have a lot of friends named Mohammed, and we're great buddies, and we work together, and we have them for dinner. And I have African-American friends and gay family members. You know, we got them all. Yeah. And I've had exposure. I'm not the same person I was when I left home. And I tell young people today, as soon as you graduate, get out of the village. For the first 5 years, go to New York, go to San Francisco, LA, go to a big city and get exposed. You will become a different person, and don't worry about your parents not wanting you to do that. Do what you need to do, not what they want to do, because your parents have already taught you a lot of things that aren't true about people.
Yeah.
God bless them.
I know.
Lee, would you be okay if we take just a short break? I really got to go to the bathroom right now.
You know, I've had to do that in the middle of a speech. I'll tell you about that when you come back.
Hey, that sounds like a plan.
We'll just keep it rolling. It'll be easier to keep we can just edit the video in the background. How are conversation going okay for you?
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's a subject I love, and I love to. Every time I do these, it helps me rethink what I should be focused on when I'm, I mean, the more you talk about a subject, the better you get at it, and the more you see it every day in real life. And I'll run into somebody maybe today that's having a hard time, and they'll not be happy with me, and I'll remember to treat them right, because instead of yell at them.
Yeah.
And be unhappy with them. And when my wife is unhappy with me about the installation of this thing, I'll just say, I'm sorry, darling, I should have been there.
You can blame me.
She will forgive me immediately.
That's awesome. I am learning a ton. It's a true blessing to be here with you. So thanks.
I tell you what you two both should do. I just launched the Cockerell Academy a week ago. It's amazing.
Tell me about, we're actually going to bring up your books and your
Okay, we can talk about it in a minute, but I want you to understand that how you all should take a look at it, because you will find that the approach to a lot of the work you're doing is going to be common sense. It's going to be audio. It's going to be video. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be without PowerPoint. It's going to be without all this nonsense. Kids today and young people today, and I think most people, they're tired of theory.
Yeah.
They tell me how to do that. How do I handle a person who's not performing? How does the conversation go? What questions do I ask in an interview, and what do I listen for? What do I do? This is what they want. They don't want to hear about blah, blah, blah from some professor that hadn't worked in 40 years. And so I think you'll find it to be, we have 3 more coming out. One on how to make better decisions. There's already 6 on there. Leadership, real leadership, we call it. Real, not whatever people think.
Leadership theory.
Yeah, not leadership theory. And one on inclusiveness, how to make people feel like they belong there. And it's a big problem in America right now. Probably ought to get that one out first. I mean, it's criminal the way people are treating each other.
It is.
And we're disengaging from relatives and people that because of their hatefulness. I mean, relatives. We're shocking. It's shocking.
It's heartbreaking to see
that they just don't. I don't know what it is. It's just amazing to me that people can be so ornery. Yeah.
So
and he's back. So anyway, let me tell you. I'll tell you. I don't know. You can take this out of the recording.
I'll cut this out. I promise.
Okay. So here I am. I'm down in Charleston or Hilton Head Island a few years ago, and I needed to give a speech the next morning. I had 3 speeches. I had one for a university, then at noon I was talking to a local high school, and then in 5 o'clock I was talking to the Chamber of Commerce that invited all these people to come to this thing. And I got up in the middle of the night, and I went to go to the bathroom. I couldn't go. I couldn't urinate. And 2 o'clock I couldn't. 3 o'clock I couldn't. And I'd had a little prostate issue, but I thought, never been a problem. And so I drove myself to the emergency room, and they put what do they call it? The catheter in.
Catheter.
And I went back, and I got picked up that morning, and I gave those 3 speeches, but I had to time them so I could go empty the catheter. And then I drove home, and my doctor took care of and put me on some medication. Well, I thought it was okay, no problem. So now I'm in Brazil, and I drink some drink that now I later learned that it was a soft drink, but it had tons of caffeine. It causes enlargement of the prostate. And I'm speaking and I can't go, and it's 7 o'clock at night, and and boy, it's painful. And they take me to the emergency room. There's 50 people waiting for treatment, and I'm telling you, it hurts. The doctor takes me because he and his family just came back from Disney World. I was so lucky.
Perfect.
Yeah.
He gave me hell for not dealing with this, and he put a catheter in, and I went back, and I had it taken care of with some surgery, and it's all okay. I'm like 16 years old again now, but it was like, wow. You talk about obstacles.
Yeah.
What you're thinking up here, I got to get finished in the next 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah,
of
yeah.
course the guest didn't realize that Lee was timing everything about his bodily functions.
But to me though, that's just a testament of like, you have a responsibility
Yeah.
and you committed to something.
I
So
did, yeah.
you know you're gonna do it. And like, we are just the grit or lack thereof of, you know, people, and that's such a broad statement, but like of many people is like, so it breaks my heart, you know. And so
It is.
it's been really fun, quote unquote, with the football team, you know, to be having these conversations of like, all right guys,
Yeah.
listen, we've got COVID that we're dealing with, we've got social injustice conversations that we're dealing with, and we've got football. And so just because these other things are going on here doesn't give you a right to not show up here, you know. And so it's just such a fun thing to be able to teach these guys about, like, you know, COVID and social injustice are going to be there when we get back from practice.
Yeah.
You know, and you someday are going to be a husband and a father and a businessman, and one of those areas of your life is not going to be perfect, but you still have to show up, you know. And so this is a chance to learn that skill, because it's a skill. But
you're going to have many obstacles at the same time in your life.
Oh yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
They come out of nowhere, you know.
So let's go back to this conversation. You've mentioned a lot. Yep, you've mentioned a lot about like the diversity within your team, but I also know that you've worked in a global organization and with different like cultures based on just what country you're in. So I'm curious what you found as differences or similarities as you sought to maybe bring the Disney culture, let's say, to a place like Paris. Like, how did you think about it from a cultural standpoint?
First, I got a lot of training and research on the culture before we went. But we have traveled a lot. So I'd been to France many times and have friends there and stayed there for extended periods. We usually rent a house every year in France for a month and have the kids come and be together. And because my daughter-in-law is French. Awesome. And so I think, and even when I go to the Middle East, I get on Google and make sure I understand what's right and wrong and what to do and what not to do. And but only thing people really worry about, you know, and I always tell people, if you can remember these two things, there are only two things the average parent or adult is: safety and education. That's all your mother worries about. Did she think, you know, she worried about your safety, she still does, and education. Those are the two big ones. And so most people you run into, you go to Kuwait, you go to anywhere, the people are great. They're great. You know, I mean, they're amazing. As a matter of fact, they're often better than we are. Family ties, the way they treat each other, the respectfulness, the professionalism. I went to Baghdad during the war and did 13 seminars.
Wow.
I flew into Kuwait. The generals picked me up and took me to I stayed in one of Saddam's palaces, and it wasn't that great, actually. It was very gaudy, and it was an amazing experience. And there I saw soldiers from everywhere. I met the Turks who run all the merchandise and McDonald's on the base and all that stuff, and sell all the stuff they said. People are all great.
Yeah.
And you know. Okay, so you got a few people blowing things up. We do in the U.S. too. I mean, just this week.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of getting exposure. It's a matter of getting experience. It's a matter of believing. I said to everybody in the world, they have babies and they love them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they worry about them, and they're no different. I did a program for a group in Kuwait, and at the break, a mother came up to me. She said, "Could I ask you a few questions, Mr. Cockerell?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm really concerned about my daughter. She's going to go to college, and I'm so afraid that they got the same worries."
Yeah.
And
did you find any cultural cultural challenges of bringing the Disney culture to within Paris? So what was that like, and how did you navigate that?
First, they didn't grow up with Disney like we did. They don't really know how deep it wasn't a deep part of their life. They hadn't been going to Disney. The cartoons and things there weren't particularly Disney or movies, and So they didn't really know. And the work ethic is different. You know, Americans work too much and French work about as much as they want. And they work, you know, they have a 35-hour work week, and their main thing, you know, they think every day about vacation, not about work. But when they do a good job, they do a great job. I mean, but they're not going to die for their company. They have a life, and they enjoy their life. Even when there's a recession, everybody's out of work, the restaurants are full. You know, everybody's got a bottle of red wine and a baguette.
Yeah.
One baguette in the morning, another one for lunch. I mean, you know, and it's just a different culture.
Yeah.
And you got to relax. You can't push people there. You can't say, why do you close at 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
And not reopen till 3? Because they do, and they think we're nuts.
Yeah.
So you gotta adjust, and we lived there and we adjusted, and it was great. And when you go to Turkey, they pray 5 times a day, and you that's going to happen. So hey, get over it.
Yeah. I had the fortune of studying in Spain when I was an undergrad, and so cuando en España.
We were just in Italy. We rented a house last summer, and hey man, you better get your lunch before 1 o'clock or after 1, because they're going to close up and everybody's going to lunch.
Where in Italy were you? We have several. Shout out to our Italian family. We have several locations across Italy, and an amazing family, LCI family over there. So where were you guys?
We rented a house in Lucca, which is about an hour from Florence, and it was fabulous and amazing. It was just amazing, and we'd go back there in a minute. You know, Lucca Caesar had a meeting there with all the senators.
Cool.
To divvy up the properties around the country. And they came there for a meeting. It's got 3 walls. It had the original wall during Caesar's time around the city. Then they put in the medieval wall, and now it's got the new wall. The new wall is 500 years old. So the new wall is 500 years old. So
crazy.
And it was just amazing. Yeah, and
that's awesome.
You know, we come back appreciating Italy. We've been doing that in Spain. We've done that, and most people don't get enough exposure in their life, and then therefore they, I don't know, they get some fear or something. I don't know what happens to people when you don't understand something. Ooh, those Middle Easterners, no, they're great. You know, those Egyptians, you know, those people from New York.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's very true.
So Lee, as we wrap up our conversation here, we want to hit and just highlight some of the specific work that you've done over your career, and maybe we'd like to start with the Disney Great Leader Strategies. If you could maybe explain what that was as part of your leadership development program, and then we'll move into your books and your recently launched academy that we can't wait to hear about.
Yeah, well, I was at Disney, and I was so frustrated with the process. We were trying to put new leadership theory in place, how we take care of people and how we only promote people who are qualified, not just because they've been around for 10 years. And I was frustrated with the progress. We didn't see, and I had 5,000 managers, so it's, you know, it's hard to get.
Yeah.
So I was whining and complaining one day, and a lady who did work for us, organizational development work, she said, why don't we do something about this? And I said, all right, what? She started coming to my house every Sunday for a year, and she and I talked about it, and I told her the things I wished our leaders would do, what I wish they wouldn't do, the things I wish I had done better when I was a young manager and a young leader. And she took notes, and we developed the Great Leader Strategy out of that. And then when it was all done, we had it printed up, and I did an audio on it also, which people could stick in their car back in the old day of tapes and listen to it. And I took 4 or 5 hours and went over it with my VPs, every line by line, what the expectation was going forward. And then we gave them 3 weeks to go over it with their managers, and then the managers had 3 weeks to go over it with all their employees, and we just took it down. And then I drove them crazy, like your mother. That's all I talked about. And now every employee knew what to expect from their leaders. So they would tell me, hey, this is not happening over here, you know, and this and that. And we changed the culture over. We started hiring better people. About 50 executives left the company over the next 3 years because they didn't like this, having to listen instead of telling people what to do. So great, they're gone. You know, we fired some because they weren't good leaders. They were still too autocratic and not caring. And some of them were 30-year people, you know.
Wow.
And every time we hired somebody, we hired a better person to make sure they were a good leader, a good manager, and could create the right leadership and culture. So all the assistant managers started to become better, and then the managers became better, and over time, the culture changed.
Yeah.
And today, you know, the people there, they can't even imagine how it used to be, where leadership meant 2 or 3 people tell you what to do, and they don't care about your opinion. And so that's how we made the change. And
Awesome.
it's a document. You may have a copy. I don't know. If you don't, I'll send you one.
I would love that.
Yeah, I would love that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, send me an email when we're done, and I'll send it to you.
Absolutely.
And it became a clarity of expectations for leaders.
Yeah. Awesome. I
Yeah.
love
Period.
that.
And if you don't have clarity, you know, you forget this and you don't do that. And people got to know. I call it the recipe book, basically.
Yeah.
If you want to bake good stuff, you follow this recipe. Because
Yeah.
if you leave 3 or 4 things out, it's going to be crap. So you got to have the recipe. You got to have clarity in baking. You got to have a recipe. In cooking, you can throw anything together. And this is like, you know, and that's what you got to think about. Does everybody understand it? And are you going to enforce it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you going to be clear with people? And when you start to do that, things will change. But if the people at the top don't want it to happen, it's not going to happen.
Yep. Extreme ownership at the top is.
Yeah.
So I owned it. You know, my
Yeah.
boss and I owned it. He supported me. We had the resources, the training,
Yeah.
and yeah, somebody at the top has to want it, not somebody 20 levels down.
Yeah. So your books, we've got Creating Magic, right? 10 common sense leadership strategies from a life at Disney. And then
that, by the way, came out of the Great Leader Strategy. If you have if you had that book, that's pretty much what the Great Leader. It's some difference, but not much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe can you give us one of your common sense strategies?
Yeah, the first one, number 1, remember, everyone matters.
That's awesome. That's actually the tagline of our cultural strategy is everyone matters.
If you get that right, everything else works out.
Look at that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, you got to always think, you know, if I treat my wife right and tell her I love her, everything else works out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, so yeah, that's the one. And then one is create magic through training.
Cool. Love that.
Remove the hassles from your customers and employees so they can do their job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, common sense.
Yeah.
I love that. So how about the customer rules? We're you know, talking a lot about in our industries right now about the customer.
Let me close this door. They seem to be tearing my kitchen apart. Hold on.
Okay.
Peter Max.
Is that who it is?
Yeah. It's fantastic. He probably knows the guy.
Probably. That's the Statue of Liberty. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
It's
I was
fantastic.
actually looking at that.
I love his stuff.
Okay, where's my name? So, customer rules is I wrote the first book and Random House published it in New York.
Okay.
Mainly, I got lucky. We presented to like 8 publishers and 6 of them bid on it. But the publisher that paid the most had just come back from Disney with his daughters. No, it was beautiful timing.
Perfect.
I sucked him in. And it sold about 600,000 copies so far. I mean, around the world. It's in 22 languages. Actually, the first one, Creating Magic. And the customer rules are 39 rules about things you can do to take care of your customers that don't really cost anything.
Awesome.
You know, if you do these kinds of things, it's not about spending money. And so that was, and then Random House asked me to write that one. I said, no, it's too hard to write a book. I don't want to. And they kept pushing me, and I did it. Okay. And third was time management magic, how to get yourself organized, how to get more done every day, how to make sure you're not having regrets 20 years from now that you didn't do the things you should have done.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the quotes in that book we put in there was, if you don't take the time to plan the life you want, you're going to spend a lot of time living a life you don't want.
Yeah.
Because time goes by. Time goes by. You're born, you're 21, you're 65, and you're dead. I mean, that's how quick it goes. When you look at your kids, you say, what? I can't believe they got this birthday or that. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And people don't have a respect for time. They spend their money and they spend their time, and they spend their time pretty foolishly usually. My wife said my priorities are take care of yourself, Lee, then you can take care of us, and then take care of your business. And if you have time left over, then you can help Kim Kardashian with her problems. Or you can play golf, or you can, but take care of the top 3 or 4 things before you go goofing off.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so time management's been a powerful course, because they don't teach it in high school and college. Most people are having so much coming at them today. They don't know how to keep up with it. They think they were born disorganized. It's not true. The doctor doesn't identify you when you come out and say, it's a learned process like any course. You can take the course, you can learn how to do it. It takes a little discipline. Once you get started, you won't work any other way, because you'll start to get things done, and it'll build your self-confidence. And the last one is career magic, which is how to keep your career on track when all the obstacles appear in your life, which they do. And a lot of people think, well, they think Lee Cockerell, oh, he's executive vice president. If they listen, I've been fired, I've been passed over. My wife and I moved 11 times. I don't have a college degree. I mean, no, obstacles, they come. And like you were talking earlier, to get people the grit to, okay, we got to just, I got fired once. We had a 2-year-old, a Volkswagen. The sheriff confiscated our furniture because we broke the lease on the apartment. We had no money. It was $2,000 to get our furniture back. I had no job. We got a job about a week before Christmas with Marriott. I had to sell a life insurance policy I had to get $2,000 so we could get our furniture. I mean, it was like, my wife and I would order a burger with French fries and share it. We were so poor. We had nothing.
Yeah.
And hey, I always tell people your best days are usually ahead of you, because they can't get any worse.
That's right. I hear that.
So it's a matter of just moving on through it. And so I wrote that book for a lot of young people, a lot of people who give up too quickly when obstacles come. They're going to come.
They're going to come.
They're right here now. They're right with us right now.
Yeah.
So true.
You can either sit on the couch and wait for somebody to call you, or you can start your own business, or you can go mow lawns. I mean,
initiate.
My granddaughter graduated from University of Colorado May 7th, and she's looking for a job, and she started her own company. She's doing great. She's making money hand over fist. She's doing websites, editing. She's when I said, Margot, when the company calls you and says, we'd like to interview you, what have you been doing? She'll say, I have my own job. I have my own company. I haven't been sitting on the couch waiting for you to call.
Right.
Yeah. Good for her.
Get out there. Kids say, what job should I take? I say, any job you can get.
Yeah.
Clean the bathrooms. In 6 months, you'll be in charge of the bathroom cleaners.
There you go. That's good.
And then you'll be in charge of the, I mean.
It goes on.
When you're 20 years old, it doesn't even matter what you do.
So true. Just do something.
Do something.
So Lee, we're really curious about the Academy. Can you tell us like how, with the genesis of that and what it is?
All these years I wanted to do it. I wanted to create an academy, all the things I've learned, and put them in courses and have them out there. And I've been doing the podcast, Creating Disney Magic podcast, for 6 years. There's 300 episodes on there. And we're about to hit 3 million downloads on it. I mean, people from all over the world are hooked on it. And one guy wrote me yesterday, said, I don't know how I could start my week without listening to your podcast on Tuesday, because he gets ideas. He thinks about things. I can do this. Lee did it. Why? That's how he did it. So I always had an excuse. I don't have time to get this Cockerell Academy done. Well, starting March 12th, I have a lot of time. So my partner and I started doing it, and we started working on them every day. And we've got 6 courses on there. There's 3 more coming. It's a subscription course. It's $249. We gave it away, really. And I've had many big companies already getting it for their employees. And then one company called us and said, we'll get it for all of they're a pharmaceutical company out of Japan, but we'd like to be able to track if they're using it online. And we've worked that out and figured it out for them, and they're buying it. And they just want to we bought it for this manager. Is he actually ever going in and looking at it?
Yep.
And so the next courses that come in are better decisions. We have one on there for college students, courses they should be, or young people. We have one on the customer service, world-class customer service it's called. We have one on time management. We have one on how to plan your day. We have one on many courses. They're fabulous.
All the stuff you don't learn in college,
myself,
right?
I looked at them and I was impressed. And because there are things you don't know unless you've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about, we have 30 rules in 30 days. Do one a day. One is how to improve your signature on your email. Put on the put on there your phone number. Put on there what time zone you're in.
Yeah, there you go.
You know?
That's easy.
Nobody does that.
Nobody.
You do it. It makes it easy. I don't have to write back. Where are you? What time? Yeah. Are you talking about 7 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock in the morning? Or I mean, just boom, one little thing.
Yeah.
How to think about being available for people. In my book, The Customer Rules, rule number 27 is be available. And in there, it tells you how to contact me. People call me every week saying they want to just see if I answer my phone. And I often book business out of that right there.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
So there's a lot of courses, the Cockerell Academy. So I'm talking to universities and colleges as kids we're going to give them a special rate. They send us a picture of their ID, and we'll probably do it for $199 or something. We're working with nonprofits,
Awesome.
homeless people, nonprofits will give that to them so they help these people. And video and audio is the name of the game right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Video and audio.
Yeah.
No, I said no PowerPoint, no blah, blah, blah. Just 10 minutes on how to fire somebody.
Yeah.
You know? And so
real thing.
there's a huge, and kids today, they learn from a 3-inch screen. And that's where the world's going. And one day, any kid in the world can go to college because it'll be free and it'll be online, and they'll be comfortable with it.
Totally.
And
Completely.
they have the discipline to do it.
Yes.
Because when you start learning, it gets exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you get to pick the topics and
Yeah.
it's stuff you're actually interested in, I mean, the intentionality increases, the learning increases, the integration of that increases, and it's going to be exciting.
I told some people the other day, don't ever call me and ask me a question that you can get off of Google. Just go there first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you can call me if you still don't get the answer. But people call me and ask me, where is Berlin? Where is, I mean, I said, do you have a phone?
Yeah.
Look it up. And then you get them in the habit of looking everything up. Because if you don't know something and 5 minutes later you don't know, that would be your fault.
Yeah.
It's just research.
So we got to get them learning. It's accumulative.
Yes.
And so a lot of that kind of strategy and theory and thinking is, I think, important, especially for a lot of young people that haven't had a good family and education. They'll learn things that they go, wow, I never thought of that. So that when they go for an interview, they'll probably get hired because they'll at least know the right things, and they'll know how to give good service when they get hired.
Yeah.
Lee, I already learned this, to say thank you and to do this and to open the door for people when they come in the store. And it's just, these are things that give you the advantage.
Yeah.
Well,
fantastic stuff.
Yeah, this conversation has been absolutely incredible. I've got 2 full pages of notes.
Yep.
So
Got my own.
if you are listening to this on podcast while driving your car, make sure that you get home and write some of this stuff down. It was just filled with insight and wisdom, practically that we can apply as leaders. One of the things that we do on our show here, Lee, is just end with some high performance leadership training, things that leaders can do to take that next step for them on their leadership journey. I think that our conversation was packed full of leadership things that leaders can do immediately to grow as a leader. But anything else on the tail end of this that you would give us to say,
I would say the first thing you ought to do when you go, like I go to a new job, I'm a leader. I don't do anything for 30, 40, 50 days. I have meetings every day with the executives I work with me, and I have a list of questions. What's our water bill? What's the electric bill? What do we have that? And I learn before I start making any decisions, so that I don't make a decision then have to reverse it because I didn't ask why we do it, and it was the right thing to do in the first place. And then get to know your people, get to know everybody. I walk my operation every day, 3 times a day when I run a hotel, and I know every single employee. They see me, they have a comfortable relationship with me, and they help me run the business. They tell me who's stealing, they tell me who's doing this, who's doing that. If they only see you once a month, or for, you know, some people will tell me right now have been furloughed, they haven't heard from their boss in 5 months.
Yeah.
I mean, God, they're not going to be too committed when they come back. And I say, just be out and about, be in your business, ask people what you can do for them. Is there anything else? What do you need to do your job? What resources do you need? What are you missing? What policies and procedures do we have in place that are making it hard to do your job? What are the guests complaining about? You know, just get out there and find out what's going on, and then use your authority to fix it. And then they trust you.
Yeah.
They trust you,
action
but
on
you
the
better
back
take
end.
care of it. Once they tell you, you better take care of it, because, or
Right.
tell them why you can't. I mean,
Right.
that's all. It's basic, simple stuff.
Mm.
Don't hide in your, I always tell people in the old days, I said, touch your people before you touch the work when you get in the morning.
Mhm.
But HR told me to quit saying touch your people. So I,
We're a walking HR disasters here
That
too.
makes sense.
so now I say connect with your people
There
before
you
you turn your
go.
computer on.
You updated. That's great.
So I love that, you know, to distill that down to our high performance leadership training. Connect with your people before you connect with your work in the morning, and allow that to really set the trajectory of your day.
And they know more than you do, so don't be intimidated. They're always going to know more than you do.
And you want them to, because they're touching the value stream, right?
And your job's not to know everything they do. That's why you hired them.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
What a great time, Lee. We're so appreciative you took the time. Wow.
Yeah.
What a great conversation this has been. Thank you so much.
You guys are great. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah. Bye.
Wait, okay, we can pause here just for a sec. Awesome. Well, thank you.